This is the ground floor.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Ground Floor. I'm Jesse Finver, and we have a very cool, awesome guest this week. Jack Settleman, creator, CEO of Snapback Sports. Jack, thank you so much for joining me today. This is very cool. I'm very happy you're on the pod.
I'm very honored to be here. I'm very excited to chat.
Yeah, you're in the top 10, the first 10 people to be on the pod, so we're breaking ground here. I'm going to get right into it. You're a young guy, but you've led a very interesting life right off the bat. Let's start, ground floor. That's what we do here. I want to know, as someone who is immersed, their life is just immersed in sports. What is your first memory? You think back now and point to that moment where you fell in love with sports.
So I always talk about it as like my journey and how I got here, but I grew up in a family business where we distributed beer. And so currently sell beer to the Ravens and the Orioles. So growing up, a Ravens win or an Orioles win meant more beer sales. So it was really from the business side of sports since I was a very young kid. My most memorable sports moment, what made me fall in love with it, I don't know if I could pin that. I just know that it's been ingrained in me. And I just think the concept in general of like grown men crying or chest bumping is like amazing. Like, Apple releases a new iPhone. There's no one in the boardroom who's hugging, crying, celebrating like the peak of their success. So I just love sports for that reason.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, as a Orioles fan, you watched that no-hitter yesterday?
I did not. Well, I'm in New York, so it's tough to get the games. We didn't have it pulled up, but we were tracking on the phone, and we were pretty. I mean, it was the first one in 52 years.
Yeah, Jim Palmer back in '69.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned the beer distribution business. Was there any other pressure from your family to join the family business?
No, I have good parents. It was definitely an option if I wanted to, but and they still ask, hey, do you want to come back? And like half jokingly, because they know that that's not in my future. In the meantime, there's actually 5 of us, my brother, and then my 2 cousins and their little sister. And it doesn't appear at this time anyone's going into the family business. So we'll see how it plays out.
Are you the only one in sports? I mean, obviously your parents, you're selling beer to sports teams,
Yeah.
But what about your siblings?
Yeah, I'm the only one in sports right now. My brother's a junior at Ohio State, so he's in the business of watching Ohio State sports. So that's about it right now. And then my cousins they're not in sports.
So, as someone whose life is social media, Snapchat, podcast, do you remember your first foray into social media? Your first time, like, was it Facebook? What was it? Because for me, it was Facebook.
Yeah, mine was Twitter. I'll never forget, actually. I must have deleted this tweet because I try and find it all the time. But I literally remember my first tweet was like, I'm sitting on the couch watching SportsCenter. And like I remember where I was, because that's what Twitter used to be. Twitter.
Yeah.
It was like stat. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't thoughts. It was literally status updates. So yeah, I'll always remember that. I don't know if it was on a different account, if I deleted the tweet, but yeah, that was my first post that I can recall on social.
I remember we would like give shout outs to like your 100th tweet, or like the format of you like it'd be like Jack Settleman is, and then like you'd write like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Completely different. It's a completely different world. Now it's the Wild West, but back then it was just like, so we were all so pure and innocent. It was so different. All right, you went to UT, so obviously hook 'em, right?
Of course.
Major in sports management. Your sophomore year, things start happening for you. You're working for a website. You're selling phone cases. How did you get involved with that?
So, to be honest, the sport management program at UT is not too tough to say the least. So it left me with a lot of time on my hands and living in the frat house. And I'd always had like an entrepreneurial spirit, and I had a few $100 in the account. So me and my roommate were like, let's start this phone case company. And we started making designs we actually started with rappers, J. Cole, Lil Wayne, Drake, Kanye. And we quickly realized that while that was an addressable market, the reason the sports cases were selling so well is because that's what people wanted to buy and stick on the back of their phone. So went through that entire process. Then I went abroad to Barcelona, was maintaining that, but it got tough with the hours. So we kind of flipped it to a print on demand opportunity. We were actually pretty early in the drop shipping game, which is funny looking back because now any YouTube ad or TikTok you see is like, you could drop ship this for, take my course. And we were just kind of doing it. So that
Explain to the listener what a drop ship is.
Yeah, so dropship is you don't actually touch the product. So the first iteration of A-list cases was we would order 100 iPhone 6 cases with a Kanye design from China for $2 a pop. So the margins were massive. But then the iPhone releases iPhone 6, 7, 8, 8 Plus, 9, and then it gets really hard to maintain inventory. If a design flops, that kills all the profits from another design. So the print-on-demand model, which is you don't hold inventory, and like a site like Printful or Shopify, they'll create the design on demand, margins shrink, but you're holding no inventory. And then drop shipping is like you could be selling plants on this website, but really you order from me for $20 and then I buy it from a distributor for 10 and they ship it straight to you. And you're really just on the marketing side of it, no inventory management, etc. So the biggest one we did was we found these NBA bracelets, Cavs, Warriors, during that big 2017 finals. And we were doing this promotion, which was like retweet this tweet. So that's how we grew awareness on it. And you'll get a free code to buy for this bracelet. Just pay shipping and handling. So the bracelet cost us like $4 all in, Shopify fee, shipping, the cost of the material. So it was $6 kind of margin there. And people would just pay the $10 for shipping and handling. It was the same as offering for 10, whatever. But the free obviously played better. So we sold thousands of those bracelets. People, like any market, catch on quickly. They start to copy it, mimic it, use same techniques. And so now, we don't do that anymore, obviously.
But I mean, growing up with the family business, did you take any lessons from working with the family business at all growing up, or something around like in that range when you started doing stuff at UT with the phone cases, or was this something that you kind of just picked up along the way?
Kind of just, I mean, I love like learning and failing, to be honest. And we did a ton of that, and that's what any startup, it wasn't even really a startup. I mean, we had an LLC, but for my parents, I wouldn't say anything specifically from the beer business in terms of like supply chain or anything like that, but more so just, having my parents to bounce ideas off of, marketing, taxes, all that different type of stuff you run into.
And so what did this business teach you about sales, growing a business in general, moving forward?
It really teaches you everything. It's why it's my biggest piece of advice to everyone, which is just like, go start something. I always use the example of a podcast, right? So it seems simple if you're listening to this, that we're just talking over Skype. Okay. But you need to learn how to market it, book a guest, record it, edit it, find a hosting platform, find ads, CPA, right? So that's why I always say, just go start something and you'll learn so much. YouTube, you get into YouTube, you're looking at thumbnails, titling, copywriting, linking out, cold openings, thumbnail. Like there's so much you learn from just making a YouTube video, which sounds simple in the end, why I have so much respect for, anyone who really succeeds in the content world, especially people that are doing it themselves. So I would just say learn. I mean, I can't list the things that I learned, but it was a million different things, right? Just by doing. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're going through right now. This is going to be our 4th episode with you, so we're grinding. Me and my producer, Andrew, we've been grinding and just trying to book as many guests as possible. Not like, we're going for quality, not just quantity. but just we want to have episodes to put out, and we're going for the most interesting people we can think of, and you're one of them. So all right, let's move on. You mentioned it though. A lot of kids are trying to do what you're doing. Every company is a school brand ambassador, as everybody wants to become social media famous. But doing what you do takes a lot of work, right? I mean, it's not just going on Skype and recording an interview, right? Like you just said. What's a typical day like for you when you were working with Nike as the CEO of A-List while also starting Snapback, all while working on your degree?
Yeah, so the Nike class was really, really awesome. That was a program at UT through the sport. Actually, it wasn't through sport management, just a program at UT. Nike had a partnership with Texas. You apply for it. I think 8 or 10 of us got into it each semester. Biggest takeaway from that class was actually the brainstorming sessions they taught us was like at Nike. They do these things where like you come up with an idea and I have to one up it until it gets to the point where it's so ridiculous, and then you keep going. So they brainstormed like how they should launch these new gold cleats, with the Texas high school. And so it started with like, okay, you should get Vince Young to go present them. And then it talked about like Vince Young should be skydiving out of an airplane, and then he should have Reggie Bush on his back, and like you just keep going until it gets more ridiculous. So that was cool. That was part of the curriculum, which wasn't too crazy. And then A-List actually led me to Snapback. So A-List, we advertised everything through social media. And so I would, we would be selling these phone cases, build an ad, give it to a big page, pay them $1,000, net profit, including the ads, $200, even though we did $3K in revenue on it. So take away the inventory, take away, all those different things. And I'm like, screw that. Like I want to have the distribution. I want to have the ad space. So that's what started Snapback Sports. And that's why we went to Snap, because it was just so busy on Instagram and Twitter. And we found that kind of new space. It actually fit perfectly for the platform, the vertical view. And just if you think about how we consume sports, right? Growing up, you go to Sports Center, right? You sit on your couch Saturday morning, bowl of cereal, watch Sports Center for an hour, you watch it again, right? No one does that anymore. There's no reason to, right? You just scroll Twitter, you scroll Instagram. But the thing with Twitter and Instagram is these things are feeds. So like you actually see them in doses. You come to Snap, you're on one profile. So you're clicking through and you get everything, in that short period of time. So it just fit really well. And it's what led me to start Snapback, which was originally called Real Sports. But because of Brian Gumbel, we had to change that for copyright issues.
That might have presented you a couple of roadblocks there.
Yeah.
So Snapback, walk the listener for someone who. So I mentioned that you're the founder of Snapback Sports at the beginning, but we didn't really go into it because we wanted to start early on. So for someone the uninitiated, what is Snapback Sports?
So Snapback Sports is a mini sports media company that I've built over the last few years, starting on Snapchat. And the goal is...
Say mini, but it ain't that mini.
It's not ESPN size yet.
No, I mean, you got the worldwide leader, but
exactly.
you got a solid following there.
Yeah. So it's the largest sports Snapchat account, which is kind of something like a House of Highlights type of vibe. And really the goal is like connect with the new age sports fan, which means there's more Steph Curry fans than there's Warrior fans. There's more people who care about the drama on NBA Twitter than a random pass on a Tuesday night basketball game. Like the Tom Wilson stuff last night is more interesting than Connor McDavid's, another one of his goals or a Trout home run. So just listening to that feedback and engaging with the new age sports fan. So it started on Snap, built on Snap to the biggest sports Snapchat account, over 850,000 subscribers. Like 500 million views every year. And then just like any media company, you kind of build down from that. Started a podcast. We hit #1 on the charts a year ago, which was really fun. We, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, the normal stuff. And then build my personal brand alongside of that, because I think personality is way more important than distribution in these ages. So That's kind of what Snapback is. I'm the majority of the content. We've got a co-host. We've got some other people who make appearances, but definitely like a Barstool-ish model to a degree, except less, you know.
Yeah, not all
Yeah,
the back.
yeah, exactly.
Let's just leave it at that.
More fun,
Yeah,
and chill.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, do you have can you point to something like, what's your favorite? I don't want to use memory. That's like so cliche. What's your favorite No, like what, like, is there like a moment where you're like, oh shit, like, yo, we made it. Like this is like real. Like, is it like when you mentioned you're at the Super Bowl? Like, is there like something like a moment where you're like, whoa, this is real deal?
Yeah. So there's to me there's two like ways to take that, right? Which is the we made it, or like just what's the coolest thing you've gotten to do. The thing for me is I just can't take anything I do seriously, because it really is just like so ridiculous that I could talk to the Heisman winner on a podcast. I'm just some random kid, sitting in New York City. Like, I really don't like think of it as like, wow, I'm like here and doing all that, but yeah, we've done so many silly things, like playing a game of knockout for House of Highlights for $100,000. Just like it's not real life. Like no one does. Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't win. I wish I had. But no one does that. So I think those would be the we made it type of moments. But the coolest thing for sure was the Miami Super Bowl a couple years ago. That was the first time where it was like, I get to work and I'm, in the lower bowl of the Super Bowl. And it was just really, really cool to be able to do that. It was in Miami. It was 65 and nice out on a Sunday night, and the environment of the Super Bowl is just so freaking cool. Still a couple of things I definitely want to do. We joke about this all the time. We've recorded with hundreds of guests, CJ McCollum, Miles Turner, talked to Mark Cuban, etc. But to this day, never talked to a single Raven or a single Nick, which are like my two favorite teams, which is like so wild. So Lamar Jackson is my favorite player. So like he's the goal. Yeah.
Julius Randle.
Yeah, Julius Randle.
Yeah.
CP3 is my favorite basketball player, so he would be cool too. Yeah. It's actually his birthday today. Shout out to CP3.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so there's still some fun things to accomplish, but Super Bowl was definitely by far the coolest.
Yeah, I'm for all those who don't know, I'm recording right now in Boulder. It's my little brother's graduation. We fly in last night. Guys wearing a Nuggets little thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, go Nuggets. He's like, oh yeah, go Nuggets. And I'm like, oh wait, yeah, but not tonight. Go Knicks. Got blown out last night, which sucked. But
it was
I wanted to go to the game. My dad was like, nah, we're not going. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. All right. Snapback's not the only thing that you've done. You've worked with other places before, before you got Snapback to where we're at right now. You worked at the Action Network, Whistle Sports. Did those with those groups, did they help you anything, teach you anything from a social media perspective leading up to Snapback that you could share? Maybe, people are listening to this not just because they want to listen to you, but because they want to hear what you have to say and see how you got to where you're at. So what did you learn from your previous stops before Snapback got to where you're at now?
Yeah, so Action Network was my first job out of college. Congrats to them, selling for a quarter billy on Monday.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So first tip, if you're going to go work at a startup, try and get equity, unlike me.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. So no, Action was amazing. I love those people. Always root for them. I did social at there. Got up to like kind of head of social media in a short period of time there. Always pay attention to competitors because they're going to help you more than they're going to hurt you. So that was a major thing. Action Network was actually first into like the sports betting space, and I think for a little bit just tried to maintain that lead instead of kind of grow that lead and improve on ourselves. So just because, you're at one of the top companies, don't get complacent. But just that was really where I learned a lot about the personality stuff, because other brands invested in personalities, and we did a lot of SEO stuff, which made it tough on social, but you always have to be asking to do more. Like no one's going to be like, hey, you should totally start this entire new thing at the company. So one of the things I did was start like an college ambassador program, and built that up for them. And so kind of leave a little bit of a legacy there, which led to a social media hire who's a friend of mine who's actually still there today. So yeah,
I remember when they first came out, I was a senior in college, and like they were sending, I was like, I feel like I was one of the first 10,000 to download the app. Like I was in on it early, and they like had like, they tweeted out, maybe it was like, I don't remember who it was. It was one of the early guys, and he was like, if you want to work for us, like we need content creators. And you know, that's what I do, you know?
Yeah.
So I had the application up, and I just never clicked send for some reason. I was like applying to other things. Like one of my biggest regrets, because like who knows, maybe they said yes and I'm still working Action Network. But that was definitely a what if for me. What about Whistle Sports? I know a couple of the guys there.
Yeah, so Whistle, I mean, for me, I think it's different than most experience at Whistle, but Whistle taught me how to unlock myself as a creator, which is super, super important. You know, we had this big platform while I was at Action, and they came to me and said, you're doing it wrong. You need to think of yourself as a creator, as talent, as creating content. So that just opened up a whole new world, on camera stuff, more podcasting, more guests, putting me in branded content. So I would say just learning a lot of like the, you know, real business side of, once again, you see this Nerf ad that I'm in with Juju, which was crazy once again. But like you don't see, you know, the campaign team, who's the sales team, the team that makes the deck, the team that actually manages the campaign, the team who makes sure there's a shooter come to the house, the social team who makes sure the cuts get out on time and tag everything. Like those processes are extremely intensive, and just being able to see that behind the scenes was really important, and learning, you know, what a plan looks like, you know, from start to finish.
You kind of touched on this earlier, but is there any, I wouldn't say regret, but is there any, looking back, was Snapchat the right play for you, or was there another medium you think you guys could have done even better in?
Yeah, so Snapchat was 100% the right play, because just the way that we could kind of reach that hyper growth. In terms of which platform plays the best, brings the most opportunities, maybe Instagram. If I could pick, you know, if I could pick 1 million followers on any platform, I'd actually probably go Twitter, I think.
Interesting. Why?
Twitter's growth is awesome. You know, you can pick up new followers if you're putting out really good content. The link driving is really important. So just being able to monetize there is really strong. But yeah, I don't know which platform I would go with necessarily. I personally love Snapchat. Like I love all the tools. I love the community it kind of fosters. It really is a more positive environment there. And as of yesterday, they announced a creator marketplace. So I actually think things are just getting started on Snapchat, which
what is that? Explain that.
Yeah, so for 3.5 years since Snapback started, we've done every single piece of brand outreach, pretty much finding brands, pitching them. And not only are we pitching them on Snapback, but we're pitching them on Snapchat, because people don't know how to use it. People don't know how to, you know, interact with it. They don't know influencer marketing on it, et cetera, et cetera. So up until literally yesterday, when they announced that they're going to add this creator marketplace, it's so creators can interact and cross over with brands. We were part of a test. We did something with Call of Duty, which is just something would have never.
You a gamer?
I am a gamer.
Yeah,
I'm mostly
on the show.
I haven't. This is the funny thing. So when COVID started, I bought a PS4 literally just to get the show, and then we started making YouTube content, and Madden kind of got in the way and everything. But I was like, once this comes out on Xbox, like it's game over. But I haven't gotten it yet. I've also been seeing that it's not the greatest game. Is that true? I'm seeing some negative.
It's not true.
Okay.
So, all right, I'll bring it. I'll bring it down to you this way. I'm also a gamer. Big Call of Duty, sports games. Fortnite, I dabbled with. It wasn't any good. The show's servers are awful. like absolute garbage where you'll be like, you'll finish a moment and then it'll be like, yeah, like this didn't count at all and you have to redo this, and it took you like 2 hours to finish it. Or you're in the middle of a game, you hit a walk off and then the game just disconnects and you get a loss like that. Like, but the game itself is, if they can figure out the servers, they've got something, because the game itself is very fun. But yeah, I mean, the show is, you got to get the show.
I love the show. I've been playing the show since I was on freaking PSP. You know?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
David Wright on the cover and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's like, see, I've been an Xbox guy forever, so like I've been waiting for the show to come out. So, all right, let's move on from video games though. And we can talk video games all day. We'll wrap up soon. I know you got your time is precious, but what's something that you wish you knew when you first started out in this business that you know now?
Oof.
Yeah, we're going from video games to like real serious real quick.
What is something that I wish I knew? I would say, what's something that I wish I knew? I've been learning just by people I follow on Twitter. It's less more so from like my trials and tribulations and more so just like, I wish I'd been kind of taking in a lot of people's advice on Twitter, just like people I discovered. But yeah, this new concept of making sure you're optimizing for the biggest payoff, meaning it was a really cool tweet I was reading through yesterday, which was like becoming the greatest doctor in the world or the greatest chess player in the world, or let's say top 5, right?
Sure.
Both are, I mean, they're just not going to happen, right? But let's say, let's say they did. Let's say,
yeah, all right.
Right. Let's say they did, right? What's your upside on being the 5th best chess player in the world? 150K a year, 250K a year, even I don't know what they're making and what their brand.
Leverage to be like, you can leverage it with the brand.
Sure.
Like top 5, yeah.
Sure. But still, you're a top 5 chess player. You're not a top 5 NBA player, right? Top 5 doctor in the world. What do your services render? Millions of dollars. So that's just one basic example. But I think just thinking like a reason why. So I got big into NFTs, and I think what really
I've seen that.
Yeah,
we were heading there. So
yeah. So it got there, but I think a lot of people are like, that's dumb, which is normally a good thing if people tell you it's dumb.
That's me. I was gonna ask because I need it broken down. Continue, but I need it broken down.
I'll give you the NFT explainer. It's dumb, it's risky, it's all these things, right? It's a waste of money, which is fine. It could be. But once again, look at the downside versus the upside. I'm 24. I got to pay rent and eat, and that's about it, right? At this point in my life, I don't have to support anyone. I'm fortunate. I don't have a kid yet. I don't have a wife. I don't have those things. So this is the time to take risks. And you invest in a risky stock. Maybe it drops 50%. Maybe it returns 2x, 3x, 4x, which would be great. Or you invest in Bitcoin, and your return could be 15, 20, 30x, right? And your downside was still that initial investment. Maybe it goes to zero, sure. But I just think like being able to take those big risks, if you're in a fortunate position where you can, and same thing with anything you do in life, go as risky as you can, especially early on, because the downside is really just failure and you learn from it.
Yeah, you can apply that to so many different things, like asking a girl out. What's the worst you can say? No.
Exactly. And what's the upside? You get, you have a wife and a family, right?
Exactly.
When you really put it in perspective, it makes you stop and think like, wow, this is kind of silly that I'm not taking that risk.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, NFTs. Here's my thought process on it. Because I have a lot of friends who are into Top Shot, and I know that's what you're into.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. I'll just throw it out. I don't get it. If I wanna watch a highlight, I'm just gonna go to YouTube and watch that highlight. All right, say it's the block, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about with the block. So say it's the block. If I want to go watch The Block, I can go watch The Block. Tomorrow, you get into a room and you are the second person in line and you're freaking out, right? Because I know all about, like, people are waiting in lines. There's tens of thousands of people waiting in line. You can't get into the rooms. You pull The Block and it's worth, I'm sure, $1 zillion because it's like the most famous play LeBron James ever had.
Yeah.
Why does that have value? Like, how can you say you own that when I can go on YouTube and watch that clip and you can't say, no, that's my clip, you can't watch that?
Well, you can. Well, so, okay. Loaded question,
see?
obviously.
Yeah.
I'll give you the full kind of scope of it. So a few things to cover. Number one, of course, anyone can watch it. Same way that you can go on Google and Google the Mona Lisa, right? Just because you own something does not mean that other people can't look at it, right?
Okay. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So number two, how do you say you own it? That's what the blockchain is. That's the technology, that it's digital ownership. And it says, on a ledger somewhere that this person owns it. It's pretty simple on Top Shot. It's actually, it's easier to kind of understand, is like it's in your account wallet or it's in your profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you go on your own your Instagram account. It's like, okay, I can look at the pictures I posted. Anyone can look at them, but they are my content, my profile, my picture.
Yeah.
You go into Top Shot. It's the same thing. Like you can go look at what's in my profile, but like really what it comes down to is like anything in life, if someone's willing to pay for it, it has value, right?
Yes. That's where like I do get that, where
and so that's what makes it yours.
It has value.
And that's what answers the why can't I screen record this? You can, but no one's going to buy yours and everyone will try and buy mine because because it's the official license by the NBA. It's on the blockchain. It's identified as yours. So that's just like stage one, which is the store value, which is actually pretty early NFT game. And I think it's a way of getting people into it. What really is exciting is the technology behind it all.
Okay, so break that down for the uninitiated, the people who, like me, who don't know a lot about NFTs.
Yeah, so a couple different examples. So Patreon, you're familiar with exclusive content. So instead of paying $8 a month and just saying like I have a Patreon and I get access to this, instead, what if you owned an NFT, you see it in your mobile wallet, and it granted you access to X, Y, and Z? Meaning Gary Vee just released his stuff. Instead of buying a ticket to a different event of his, he's now releasing like 1 hour webinars that you can meet with him, a 1 hour workout with him and his trainer. And you need to own a Gary Vee coin, which is also a symbolic piece of art. Another example, just for Top Shot, because I think more people know about it. What if Spencer Dinwiddie said, if you own 20 of my moments, we'll do Sunday night dinner in Brooklyn once a year. And anyone who owns 20 moments gets to do that.
I've seen that. I forget who it was. It might have been like Terry. I think it was Terry Rozier.
Yeah.
Tweeted out like, "Who wants to buy my moments? I'll come hang out with you."
Exactly.
All right, I guess that's a good way to make some money.
But listen, if you don't like Terry Rozier, of course it's not for you. And that doesn't mean it goes to zero necessarily, but it's a different way to engage with communities. A really, really cool example that is not even close to here yet, but a perfect example is, think about, when you've discovered someone, meaning like let's say you were at Drake's first concert and you're like, damn, this guy's dope, right? And so you start telling everyone about it, right? And you're the guy that was like, you didn't discover Drake, but like you were one of his first fans and you bought his merch, you bought his albums on iTunes, and then you streamed up, right? What's your benefit and reward for tracking that?
I think it's a lot of self-gratification stuff. Like it makes you feel good that like you're like
100%.
I'm one of the first people that like I mentioned with Action Network. Like
exactly.
I thought it was cool. Like I remember Stranger Things came out on Netflix and I was like sick in like the morning, and it was the first season. No one ever heard of it, and I must have been like one of the first like 100 people to watch that show.
Yeah.
I was at 3 a.m. It just came out, And I was like, all right, I guess I'll try this. And it turned out to be awesome. Like I totally get that feeling.
Okay. So now go and pay your rent in self-gratification,
Yeah, it must
right?
be.
You can't. No,
Yeah,
you
if
can't.
you could.
Right. If you could. So perfect example is if every time you bought, let's just use Barstool because I think they really grew because of their fans. Every time you bought merch, you obviously pay the dollars and you get the merch. But what if you got some Barstool tokens, right? And then if you watch
Could use that.
if you use Barstool, if you watch Barstool content, you could receive more tokens. And then you could also buy Barstool tokens to say, I support this community. And then Miller Lite comes in, they want to sponsor a Barstool piece of content. Instead of just paying the Barstool people, they bought a whole treasury of Barstool tokens and dumped more into the community. So everyone's tokens are now worth more, right? Or they took some out of the community, so there's less, and now you own one of 10 instead of one of a million. And then down the line, they get bought by Penn. Maybe part of that, them buying is they actually cash out all the tokens and give them a dollar value, or it's $100 free bet for every token I have with Penn Gaming. So then
like the tokens you collect, you can do. They can say Dave Portnoy can be like, come to Miami with me if you have 10,000 tokens.
Exactly. And then the real day one supporters or day 100,000 who have put millions of dollars in, right? Like it's tough to say which is worth more. Is it the guy who's been there since day one or the one who's invested dollars into it are now all rewarded? And that's the tech of NFTs it's down the road, but
so it's like real life microtransactions.
Yeah.
In like video games where like you have to pay to get cards and stuff, like if you're playing Ultimate Team and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, and Top Shot's releasing a mobile game which will use kind of some of those mechanisms. It won't be as exciting as FIFA Ultimate Team, but they're gonna have some of that, and I think that'll definitely help make people more interested. It gets really interesting, right? Because we grew up playing those games and asking our parents to like put their credit card info in it, but that was kind of the end of it. Now with Top Shot, if I can, as a 13-year-old, say, hey, Dad, like I need this moment so I can, power up against my friends. But then the dad learns that these moments actually have a store of value. Now you've got two levels, right? You've got the lower part of the ecosystem, which uses it for gaming, and the dad who has real money, who's like, oh, these hold value. I love Tim Duncan. His moment could potentially go up. He's one of the greatest power forwards ever, So I think that gets really interesting. But that's just all different kinds of ways to utilize NFTs.
Is there a way that you guys at Snapback are going to try and utilize NFTs?
Yeah, so I would guess in the future, 100%. What we just saw was a major cash grab market, right? Where every celebrity is releasing their NFT with no utility, no access. They're just putting out this thing and it says it's mine, so buy it. And so that was what we definitely wanted to avoid because it just is doing the community wrong. So just learning and seeing how people are doing it. If this Gary Vee thing like goes really well, maybe we model after that a little. For me, there's no need to rush into it. It's not the time to do it. Some people, I think it was time to this is time to cash out, right? And get rewarded for all your hard work over the years. For us, it's too early to really think about doing anything.
Yeah, because like, what would that even look like if a social media company had NFTs? I guess like with Barstool, it's one thing, but with someone who's still growing like you guys, like Barstool, they're like they've reached the top of the social media empire, right? For someone that's growing, I mean, I don't want you to give away any trade secrets or anything, but like if like off the top of your head, how would you guys utilize a company like you? You have like 800,000 followers on Snapchat.
Yeah.
You guys utilize that?
Yeah, I mean, one quick example could be like we released 10 NFTs, right? Snapback NFTs to say, hey, we believed in you at a super early stage. And these NFTs, when you're holding the token, unlock one podcast appearance, one meetup appearance, and maybe we partner with Puma, and everyone who bought the NFT also gets a pair of shoes that I sign, or that so there's a million different ways to go about it. That's just one example of it. The Barstool NFT they did, it's a pretty cool concept. It was a pizza review, which is obviously intrinsically massive for Barstool. They sold that kind of review as an NFT, and then every dollar that was spent on it, so let's say it went for 100K, that person then gets flown into wherever Portnoy is. They bet that amount of money on the game, which is a tie-in to Penn and sports betting as a whole.
Right.
And then you get the money back if the bet wins, and if they lose, then Barstool just keeps it. So,
and you had a fun experience getting flown somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that stuff to me is less interesting because it's one-of-one stuff and it's super high price tag. And my thing's always been about community. So it would be something that like really rewards the community. But once again, that's what Top Shot. That's why it was so special, because you could come in, sign up with an email, and make a credit, and buy with a credit card. With all the rest of this stuff, you need a MetaMask wallet, you need Ethereum. There's major complications to all that.
And over time, things will get easier. Last but not least, you're at where you're at with Snapback. What's next? What do you got in the what do you got cooking up right now?
Yeah, so pretty cool. First ever audition for television was actually yesterday.
Nice.
So that was
shared details, or?
Yeah, I think I can. I mean, whatever. I don't really care. So Adam Silver wants the NBA, or more specifically NBA TV, for the playoffs to have a sports betting show. So I get to audition amongst a bunch of different people, but this is why I just love doing what I do, because it was such a cool learning experience. Like, first time I've ever had a producer in my ear talk, like while I'm talking, he's talking me through like, all right, we're going to break in 10 and finish your statement, keep it concise, and you just like, it was just so cool.
That was your first TV experience. IFB, you have the producer, everything. Cause that's where I started in local news in Mississippi, doing sports and doing live shots. And it's one thing to do pre-recorded stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's a completely different ball game when you're live.
100%.
Completely different.
And I thought just getting that rep in was so cool. So, I mean, if I get it, that'll be even cooler. If I don't, it'll just be a great learning experience.
Absolutely.
So what's next is really just to continue growing, expanding, and then just being able to like be nimble, right? So my goal for this year was literally do what makes you happy. Meaning like, people will get burnt out really quickly. I loved making YouTube content, but I hate the editing part of it. And that shit burnt me out during COVID, right? 3-hour edit for a 12-minute video. And I just hated it. The load, the exporting, all that stuff. And so if I couldn't hire, someone to do that or pay someone to do that, then I just put it aside. And that stunts some growth, sure, but you're just going to burn out over time. So by doing that, it let me get into NFTs and Top Shot specifically in a great way, because like I loved talking about it. I love meeting people in the space.
Oh, I can tell.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what's next, is just continue to grow and continue to do shit that makes you happy.
Jack Settleman, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was awesome. You got something going, and if you haven't heard of Jack, guys, check his stuff out. It's easy to find. Literally, Snapback Sports on Snapchat. You can find him. You want to plug your socials real quick?
Yeah, it's pretty much Jack Settleman on any platform, and then the Snapback stuff. It's Snapback Sports on Snap, Snapback Pod on Instagram, Snapback_sports on Twitter, and I think Snapback Sports on YouTube and TikTok. But I like meeting new people, so definitely feel free to DM me, chat, questions, etc. Say you came from Jesse for context. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on the show.